So right here, I'm pressure testing to see if any air bubbles come out between these plungers. If I get air between there, then that means there's fuel that's gonna pressurize past there and then contaminate the hydraulic fluid in this side. So I'm not seeing any air bubbles. So the next thing I'll do, I'll take my vacuum pump, stick it in the bottom of here, and then with my modified little fill tool for the diaphragm section to get it bled of any air before I put the case on and start filling it. I'll fill this guy up like that. Pump my diaphragm, release it. Woo. It's a messy job. Pump it, release it, and you can see air bubbles come up. Let it sit for a second, let some of the air bubbles rise. Pump it. Release it. Pump it. Release it. Pump it. I think if I'm going to start doing this for people, I'm going to try and source some of these O-rings that seal the case together instead of reusing the stock one, but I haven't had problems with it. So the next step is to kind of tap the old input seal out, hit it from the top down, and then you don't need to install your input seal yet. Let me get this cleaned up. Basically just try and get as much of the old gobbledygook out of there as you can. You'll want to inspect this hole where the seal rides, that it basically just use your better judgment that it looks like a good sealing surface. Also, for these swash plates, this one, I don't know if you can see that super well, but that doesn't look like the greatest condition swash plate, so I'm not going to use this one. I have a small stockpile of used pumps. This looks like a pretty good one. Nice and shiny, no real pits or scoring. So I'm going to use this one. And the way that I get this out of here, I'll leave this, set it aside, leave it sitting upright. So I'll stick it in the vise, clamp that down, and you just kind of get it in that groove. It'll start to work its way out, and then it'll break free. Then you can just spin this off by hand, get that out of there, give this a good wipe down. This inner part almost seems to be pressed into the outer part, so I like to kind of get the compressed air to blow it through. Sometimes I'll see some crud on this surface area. Make sure that you can't catch. There's usually two, it almost looks like little grooves, but I can't really catch them with my nail. But just clean this up. Nice microfiber rag. And then with no seal, put this in there. Whatever this part is called back on. Just to hold it in place so this thing doesn't fall out. Stick our pump back in the vise. I like to use this line to kind of hold it out to give me some space to work. Then just sort of work this around. Don't go too much on one side, just, you know. And you don't need to fucking gorilla these things on either. They're relatively fucking small bolts, so I imagine you could fucking break these off pretty easy, especially with the Torx drive. Sometimes that sort of doesn't want to back off, so you just give it a little tap, it'll spin off. And we're going to use our oil. Basically just start filling it up, and it's going to bubble down. It'll keep bubbling down. This part takes a while. It'll gulp, gulp, gulp. And I don't really like to spin it because I'm trying to, something else that I got a little bit ahead of. Before I put these piston caps in, I like to fill it with basically, I'll put it in there and I'll fill it with hydraulic fluid. That way air can't get trapped in here, because otherwise, if you go ahead and install these and you have the piston caps, you know, threaded down into there. I don't know if you can see that, little holes through there. And when you put the case on, you're relying on the air to sort of work its way out. So if you pre-fill these with the oil, it leaves essentially no room for any air to be trapped into there. And one little modification that I'm actually using is I'm putting this retaining compound right on these sealing surfaces, because it kind of relies on a machine fit, I guess. You sort of compare that to like an AN fitting, that taper style press fit. I'm just trying to eliminate the chance. Basically what's happening here is this piston, this plunger, is forcing hydraulic fluid into this portion of it. And I'll give you a little demo. Essentially what it's doing, this part is doing the pumping. So that little part is expanding, and you have these little return springs on the inside, so it pushes it back. So every time that swash plate comes around and pushes down on the plunger, it's forcing hydraulic fluid into there, and that's expanding. The reason I'm using this retaining compound between these two surfaces is I can see, because fluid, again, hydraulic fluid is being forced out there into here, and I'm trying to eliminate any leaking past that surface. So the more pressure that you can hold, the more efficient that pump's going to be. I don't know if it helps anything. It doesn't seem to hurt. So basically, I'm trying not to agitate that pump with, like, not get air into those cylinders until the case is completely full with hydraulic fluid. Then we can start to worry about pulling back on the diaphragm and making sure that it's full, and then spinning it around to get any last little tiny bit of residual air that's sitting at the very, very top of the pump. Because the last thing we want to do is pump oil, or pump air rather, down into those pistons. So this is the part where we make sure this is nice and topped off. And get a little bit more fluid in here. So we'll stick our vacuum pump back on here. We'll take our new seal. Could you pour just a little bit in this groove inside of there? And basically just press it on in there. Get your socket, a little rag to keep from the splash from hitting your face. Tap it on in there. Make sure it's as straight as you can get it. Thread it on. Actually, before we thread it on, let's dump the oil out of the thread hole. Wipe away the excess. And there we have it.